A pleasant day to everyone. Today, I'll be reporting about the Marxist criticism, or also known as the Marxism. And our suggested reading is the 1984 by George Orwell. We have here the proponents of Marxist theory, and let's start with Karl Marx. He was a German philosopher, economist, and revolutionary thinker whose full name was Karl Heinrich Marx. He is best known for developing the theory of Marxism, which explains how society and history are shaped by economic forces and class conflict. When we say economic forces, these are the factors that influence how money, goods, and resources are produced, distributed, and used in this society. Marx believed that history is driven by the struggle between the two main social classes. The first one is the bourgeoisie, and the second one is the proletariat. The bourgeoisie, or the wealthy capitalists who own businesses and production, and the proletariat, or the working class, who sell their labor to survive. And according to him, this conflict leads to social change and revolution. We have also Friedrich Engels. He was also a German philosopher, a social theorist, and a political revolutionary. He was the close friend and collaborator of Karl Marx and helped develop the theory of Marxism. So Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, both of them worked together to develop the theory of Marxism, which explains how society is shaped by economic systems and class struggle. Now, let's define first what is Marxist criticism or Marxism. It is actually studies how social classes and economic power appear in literary work. It focuses on the conflict between the bourgeoisie or the rich people who own businesses and resources and the proletariat or the working class who work for wages. Kumbaga, bourgeoisie are the employer and the proletariat are the employee. So when using this approach, critics ask questions such as, first, how does this story show the struggle between the rich and the poor? So the story shows the struggle between the rich and the poor by showing how the poor suffer or are exploited while the rich control everything and gain wealth. It highlights who has power and who is being oppressed. Second, how are the lives of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat portrayed in the story? Ang mga datog ipakita that they are powerful, wealthy. Samtang ang mga pobre gipakita nga naglisod og gipang abuso. And the third questions is, what values or beliefs do the different social classes show through the characters? Kumbaga, the rich often show greed, power, and selfishness, while the poor show hard work, perseverance, and desire for fairness. Next, let's proceed to the key features, and these are the class struggle, historical materialism, and alienation. Let's start with class struggle. Class struggle is the main idea of Marxism. It means there's a constant conflict between the rich and the poor or the bourgeoisie who owns businesses and resources and the working class or the proletariat who work for them. So this struggle is what drives changes in society and history. Second one is the historical materialism. It means that how people make and use resources, both economy and material conditions that shape the history. Changes in work production and class relationships cause social and historical changes. Simply, history moves forward because of how society produces things and how classes interact. So, mag-change ang history tungod sa paagi sa pag-work sa mga tao o sa ilang interaction as different social classes, either rich o ang poor. And the third key feature is alienation. It means that in a capitalist system, workers feel separated from what they produced, from what they do, or from other workers, and even their own potential. In simple words, these are the works that does not give them the real sense of purpose and fulfillment. Murag nagbuhat ka og butang pero dili jud ma-feel nga imo jud na. Kumbaga, ang work nila is way connection in their personal growth and development. Dili na makahatag og real sense o purpose or fulfillment sa ilaha. So now let's proceed to the summary of 1984 by George Orwell. But first, let's get to know who is George Orwell. By the way, George Orwell was the pen name of Eric Arthur Blair. He is an English famous writer, journalist, and social critic. Kung si Rizal is na ay pen name na di masalang og laong-laan, si Eric Blair he is known as George Orwell. He was born on June 25, 1903 in Motihari, India, and studied college at Eton College. Orwell worked as police officer in Burma, which made him critical of imperialism. When we say imperialism, means when a country takes control over the countries to gain power, land, or resources. Now he became a writer known for criticizing political oppression and social injustice. His also most famous works includes Animal Farm, which we know already, in the 1984. He died on January 21, 1950 in London, but his ideas about the totalitarianism and government controls remain influential. When we say totalitarianism, it is means a system of government where the state has control over people's lives and opposes any opposition. Now, let's move on to the summary of the novel entitled 1984. But before that, let's have first our fun fact. So, gisulat di ay ni George Orwell ang 1984 ni adtong 1948, and the title is The Reversal of the Year 1948 to show a possible future where the government controls everything. And it is set in a dystopian future where the world is ruled by totalitarian government. When we say dystopian world, that is a bad and controlled by society where people are not free. It's the opposite of a perfect world, utopia. There he wanted to warn people that this kind of society could happen soon if we are not careful. So the story begins here. The story takes place in Airstrip 1 in London, which is part of Oceania, a country ruled by the party and its leader, Big Brother. Actually, the party is divided into two different groups that control society. These are the inner party and the outer party. So when we say inner party, these are the most powerful members of the party. They make all the rules, live in luxury, and have full control over the country. So they are like the government leaders. However, in the outer party, these are the people like Winston Smith who follow the rules, work in government jobs, and are constantly watched. They have some education but no real power. So the government watches everyone all the time using telescreens, and people must obey completely. So Winston Smith works at the Ministry of Truth, where his job is to change all the newspapers and records so that they match whatever the party says is true, even though it's lies. So Winston will fabricate all the truth into lies. And the party controls information, manipulates facts, and shapes what people believe. He looks obedient, but inside he hates the party and feels trapped because the government controls truth, words, and even what people are allowed to think. So, ang mga tao is completely controlled sa government. So, knowing the truth, Winston starts rebelling against the party by writing secretly in a diary, which is considered as thought crime because he is thinking about or against the government. And thought crime is illegal and punishable by death. So, ang sodi ay sa diary is the hatred kay Big Brother and the party. his hope for freedom and independence, and lastly, ang iyang feelings towards kay Julia. So that time, expressing emotions, ideas, and actions against Big Brother was considered as illegal. There he meets Julia, a young woman who also hates the party, and they start a secret love affair, believing it is a way to resist the party. So Winston also trusts Aubrey. Aubrey is an inner party member who gives him a copy of Goldstein book. This is actually a book, and this book explains how the party controls everything and how the society is structured. So Winston begins to believe that he is a part of a hidden rebellion called the Brotherhood. So appeal siya sa Brotherhood na rebellion. So Winston and Julia are arrested in their room above Mr. Charrington's shop. It turns out that the room was a trap, and Mr. Charrington is actually a member of a thought police. When we say thought police, these are the secret police who watch people's thoughts and actions to catch anyone who disobeys or think against the party. So mugamit sila og spies, telescreens, and informers to make sure people never rebel or questions Big Brother. So since nadakop na si Winston tungod sa ilang gibuhat, Winston is taken to the Ministry of Love. It's not actually a mystery of love, it was actually the opposite of love that we know, where he discovers that Aubrey is loyal to the party. Aubrey oversees Winston torture and re-education. So, gi-educate siya balik, forcing him to obey and love Big Brother. So, sa una, Aubrey tricked Winston as a false friend, but in the end, he is the party's tool to break Winston's mind and obedience. So, this story reaches its climax in Rome 101, where Winston faces his worst fear, which is the rats. So the party uses them to terrify him. A cage of rats is attached to his face, ready to attack him, and he is horrified and panics. In terror, he betrays Julia, begging the party to direct the torture at her instead of him. So, because of the torture he experienced, nihangyo siya na kung pwede kay Julia na lang, dili lang sa iya ha. So this part of the novel shows how the party breaks people physically and mentally to make them completely obedient. So, kumbaga, nangita jud og paagi ang government na ang mga tao is dili bitaw maka-disobey or ma-divert ilang full trust and hope sa government ra jud kay Big Brother. So, after intense torture in the Ministry of Love, Winston is completely broken physically and mentally. The party forces him to accept doublethink. Doublethink is actually a concept in the novel that refers to the ability to hold two contradictory or makasalungat na ideas in your mind, accepting both as true. It's like believing that war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength, all at the same time. So the ruling party uses doublethink to control people's thoughts and manipulates reality, believing as well that 2 plus 2 is equal to 5, showing that they control reality and truth. So even if the reality is 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, however, if the state would say 2 plus 2 is equals to 5, then that must be followed. So Winston also loses his love for Julia, and when they met later, both admit that they betrayed each other under the party's pressure. So nabuhat ra jud to nila tungod sa pressure sa ilang palibot. So after Winston is released from the Ministry of Love, he returns to society as a completely changed man. As in change na jud siya, nausab na jud siya, di na siya sama sa una. He no longer rebels or questions the party. Winston sits alone in a cafe, thinking about his past struggles. So naghunahon na siya sa iyang mga kaagi, and there he realizes that he now truly loves Big Brother. Tungod po na sa mga pain, fear, o torture sa iyaha. So, This shows that the party has broken his mind and spirit. Actually, sa novel is na ay four ka-ministries. These are the ministries of truth, ministry of love, ministry of peace, and ministry of plenty. Kung paminaw na to, ang name sounds good, but then they do the exact opposite. Sama ng ministry of truth, pero they spread lies and changes history. In ministry of love, instead of love, they use fear, torture, and punishment. And ministry of peace, supposed to maintain peace, but actually controls war and keeps the country in a conflict. And the ministry of plenty, supposed to provide plenty, but actually creates shortages and controls the economy. So the novel ends that the party has total control over truth, identity, and freedom, leaving Winston alive but mentally defeated. So no matter what they'll do, they will always end up in an authoritarian government. Now, let's apply the key features that we have. First, we have here the class struggle. In the novel 1984, we can see class struggle through how society is divided. The inner party or the bourgeoisie has all the power and wealth and the privileges, while the outer party or the pros or proletariat who live under strict rules and have very little freedom. For example, a character Winston Smith, a member of the outer party, works at the Ministry of Truth, where he must change historical records to fit the party's propaganda. Second is the historical materialism. It is shown in how the party controls both the material and social life of the people. They control food, jobs, and even history. For example, Winston's job at the Ministry of Truth is to rewrite the past for the sake of party's propaganda. And the third one is the alienation. Alienation because he feels separated from his work, society, and even himself. His job at the Ministry of Truth forces him to create lies, making him feel disconnected from reality. He also cannot trust anyone, and the constant surveillance makes him feel very isolated. For example, Winston's secret diary in his relationship with Julia are ways to try to feel human, personal, and free in the world where the party controls everything. They cannot just act in their own will because Big Brother is always watching them. In conclusion, the ideas of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels help us understand how power and economic systems can control society. When we use Marxist criticism to analyze 1984, we can see themes like class struggle, alienation, and domination. So the novel shows that when those in power control resources, labor, and even the truth, people can lose their freedom, identity, and ability to think independently. In the novel 1984, it has the control over truth and life, robs people of freedom. Samara na sa idea na when people are denied the chance to think and speak freely, they risk losing their voice, creativity, and sense of self for life. Those are all about the Marxism in the novel 1984, and thank you.